say you wanna cry, but you never do. Sugar, there's a reason why we lose.
What's up guys, welcome back, or welcome if this is the first of my videos you've seen. So a couple of quick things before we go into this video. I just wanted to say thank you so much for the support on my bunny hopping video and my balloon video. My bunny hopping video has popped off. It's sitting at over 3,000 views now, which is insane considering it's the first Apex Legends content I've uploaded. If you've not seen that video already, link will be in the description. Goes over how to heal while moving fast. I also have another video on balloon tips. Quick thing, the first part of that video talking about how to glide further has actually been patched out of the game now, but I will leave that video up because there are some more tips on how to use balloons in games to get more kills and things like that. So the main thing I wanted to cover today is something that I think people could find useful, and it's how to aim better in Apex Legends. So the main things I want to cover are things like sensitivity. I want to go over some different aim styles that you'll see some pros use and things like that. I wanted to go over not only enemy movement but your own movement, and also some gun specific stuff. So how to aim with different guns, what guns have more travel time than others, things like that. So let's just get right into it. So like I said, the first thing I want to go over is sensitivity. So on screen right now, overlaid is my Logitech software. That's where you can change your DPI and things like that. So as you can see, I'll put arrows in. I run 800 DPI. It's just what I'm most comfortable with. I've always used 800 DPI. I swap between this mouse, the Logitech G305, and an EC2A. I'm still undecided on which one I prefer. I really like the wireless, but I also like the shape of the EC2A. But for now, I'm sticking with the G305. One other thing is, if you have the same mouse or a similar mouse that has software, I always rebind the DPI button to something that's actually useful. So you can see there I have it rebound to 7, and that means I can bind that in game. I have it bound to ping enemy, but you could bind it to whoever you like. You could use your heal with that button or anything like that. I would recommend not ever switching DPI in game unless you're really into that. I don't think it's useful. I think having muscle memory and using the same sensitivity consistently is really important. On that note, I also recommend using 1 for your ADS multiplier. So your ADS speed is the same as your non-ADS speed for one-time scopes. What that means is that you have the same distance you have to move your mouse whether you're ADS or not, and that's really good for building muscle memory. So my in-game sense, as you can see here, is 1.2. I got this sense by figuring it out from my Overwatch sense. I used to use 4. If you used to play Overwatch, what you want to do is you want to take a third of your Overwatch sense, so you divide your sense used in Overwatch by 3.33333, or multiply it by 0.33333, just onwards, and you can figure out your sense. If you come from another game, or you have another game where you're really comfortable with the sensitivity, you can look up multipliers for that online, or converters. Just look it up, I'm sure they'll have one there. So the sensitivity I use is probably considered low. A lot of more casual players play on a sensitivity that's much too high. So it depends on what aim style you want to use. So for this part, I will put up a mouse cam to show you what I'm doing. So if you're using a sensitivity like mine, the reason I use a sensitivity that's solo is I like to move or do big movements with my whole arm. So if I'm doing a 180 or if I'm turning onto someone, I'll move my whole arm. And then if I'm aiming precisely, I'll either move my arm a little bit, or then I can start using my wrist or my fingers. And that way I'm the most precise I can be, because I'm using my whole arm, and my wrist and my fingers. And I use a combination of all three to be as precise as I like. If you're a higher sensitivity and you're a wrist aimer, you want a 360 that you can fit, or a 180, sorry, that you can fit into a wrist movement. That way you don't have to move your whole arm. That's say if you don't have enough mouse space to do a full 360, or if you just prefer aiming with your wrist. One thing I will say is aiming with your wrist for a long time can cause a lot of wrist problems and strain, so just be careful if you're doing that, okay? Just make sure you're doing stretches and things if your wrist does start to get sore. So for me, I find arm aiming a lot easier. I think it can be a lot more consistent, but if you do prefer a slightly higher sensitivity and, you know, wrist aiming, maybe try double the sensitivity I use. If you want to just aim with your wrist and you don't have enough mouse space to move your arm around, probably about double my sensitivity would be perfect for a wrist aimer. So let's move on then to aim styles. So the two main aim styles that I'm going to be talking about today are flicking and tracking. And when you want to use these depends on multiple things. It depends on what gun you're using, and it also depends on how you like to aim personally. So the way I would think of it generally is for guns that are single fire, like the Wingman, any kind of sniper rifle like the longbow, or even the Kraber, things like that. In this game specifically as well, flicking is a really good strategy to use because there's a lot of movement and there's a lot of jumping around, but I'll get onto that in the next section about movement. So flicking is what you want to use mainly for things like the Wingman. This is quickly changing your aim within a frame. I'll just put an example just now while I'm talking about it on screen. This is quickly flicking to the target and hitting the shot when you get there. So you flick quickly to your target and you click when you think. So it's like a snapshot. And that way they're not moving around because you flick so quickly. So it's really good against moving targets. Tracking targets is more for guns like automatic, like the R301 or the R99. And this is keeping your aim cursor, or your dot and your red dot, on the target as they move around. In this game, tracking is actually really difficult. It takes a bit of learning, it takes a bit of getting used to the movement mechanics, like sliding and things, to track targets properly. So it does take a lot of practice, and it is worth using the R99, I'd say, quite a bit to try and get used to tracking targets in this game. So these are your two main aim styles, but they're not overly rigid. So with the Wingman and things, if someone's moving in a straight line, you can track in front of them, predicting the lead time, and just shoot tracking if they don't move. So don't think of these as being you have to exclusively do one or the other with the guns. You can flick with automatic weapons if you like quickly to try and keep your reticle on the target, and you can also track with single fire weapons to try and keep with their movement if that's how you'd rather do it. So try and keep these things in mind, but don't try and stick to them too rigidly. They are important, but they're not all important. So I think the best way to practice these styles would be in-game by dropping to an area that's hot, so either jump right away and go to the first area, or go to the hot zone that's marked on the map. But a couple of external parties, I have used Aim Hero before. That's actually a pretty good one. I've heard people talk about Kovacs Aim Trainer. These are $3.99 and £7 something, I think. For these, I've never used Kovacs myself because it's on Unreal Engine, and I don't really like aiming on the Unreal Engine, so I've chosen not to use that one. I have used Aim Hero a couple of times and it's good, but I think just playing the game and learning the game is much better. So when you're fighting an Apex, you always want to be strafing either left or right so that you don't get hit, but you have to be really careful that this doesn't throw off your own aim. So the really good way to do this is to stop your strafe with the other key when you want to shoot. And that way, the moment you shoot, you're not actually moving. Like that. So yeah, another really good way to keep your aim consistent while you're shooting at someone is if you slide. So when you're sliding, you move at the same speed. And that way you're moving a lot to them, but to you, they're just staying in the same place and you can track them really easily. Yeah. The good thing about that is that sliding also makes your hitbox really small when you're sliding away, so they're going to struggle even more to hit you. So a lot of the time, like, if I'm taking on a fight, what I'll do is I'll slide around the corner, then jump, and shoot at someone. So yeah, to me that's the best way to initiate a fight, is to slide, and jump, and shoot at people around the corner. So you're running, you turn the corner, you slide, you can shoot someone in the corner. And they don't really expect you to do that either, because a lot of people play this game pretty defensively, so you can just come around the corner and shoot people. One really tricky mechanic as well for in a fight is if you're moving backwards like this, and you jump and you slide when you get backwards, you get this weird speed boost for going backwards. So you're fighting someone here and they're hitting shots on you, and you're like fine, and you jump and you slide backwards, you can shoot them while sliding away quicker than it feels like you should be able to. It's a useful tip. It's quite hard to pull off in a fight, but it's really good for evading shots. A really useful tip for tracking people as well is if you're like aiming at them here and they're strafing, try and copy their strafe movement. Don't actually try and aim at them because it's a lot harder. So if you like strafe with someone, it's a lot easier to track. So here, say they're moving, and if I try to aim with them, it's much easier than like trying to strafe yourself and follow them with aiming. So try and like aim at people that are strafing by strafing yourself. That way you can keep your aim on a lot easier. So the last thing I want to go over is some weapon specific stuff. So different things that you need to know about different weapons in the game. And the first thing is that every single weapon in this game is projectile. So that means when you shoot, the bullet takes a little bit of time to travel toward the target. And that means at really long distances, so like this person back here, you have to lead the shot a little bit. You stop there. You lead in front of him to hit the shot. If you're aiming at him exactly, let me try and show this and hit him around the edge. If you're aiming at him exactly, you might miss. So that looks like it's on him, but it misses because it takes time to get there. That's the first thing you need to know. So yeah, it's really important to realise that your shots don't hit exactly where you're aiming if the person's moving. You need to lead the shot a little bit. Another thing you need to know for certain weapons is that you can control vertical recoil in this game really easily. So if I aim at this target and I fire without moving my mouse at all, see I hit for a 42 because my gun moves up. What you can do to that is pull back on it like this. So while I shoot, I'm going to pull down and I hit for 70. It's almost double. So it's really important to learn to not do this, instead to do that. This is especially important if early game. I don't really like the devotion, so I would only pick it up early game. But if early game, or if you like the devotion, you pick it up. This is super important because watch this. Devotion has some of the craziest recoil in the game. So you need to learn to pull down and control that as much as you possibly can. And it does crazy damage that way. Another good example of this is the Hemlock in Burst. If I just fire it, it goes up quite a lot. So you want to try and control it, especially at distance. So if I was shooting at this person here, I'd only hit a little bit, but I just pull down on the shot. You'll hit a lot more of your shots that way. This method is also important with guns like the R99 for the same reason. It kicks way up. So you want to do is pull down, control that recoil, and do maximum damage. Some really specific stuff, if you pick up the Mastiff, the legendary shotgun, these edges, actually it does shoot because it shoots out a line of projectiles. But if you look, that side there, if you hit right at the edge, doesn't do very much damage, even at close range. So if I hit them with this, only 18 damage. See that? Whereas if I aim in the middle, 180 damage. So the further the line goes out, the less damage you'll do. So you want to make sure you're hitting right in the middle, and it can do massive damage that way. So it's really important with the Mastiff that you do aim dead on. You can't just hit people with the edge because you won't do very much damage. See, 72. Whereas if I have it dead on them, 144. So you don't want to be halving your damage by doing that. So one final point is when you have scopes, it will show you the distance to your target. So you see that there at the bottom. I'll just circle it when I scope in here. There, it says 114 meters. And what that means is these numbers along the bottom there, these show you how much the bullet's going to drop at a distance. So at 200 meters it'll hit the 2, 300 meters the 3, 400 meters the 4, like that. Unfortunately there's not very many targets in the practice range that are very far enough away to show this. I'll try and get to 200 meters from the far back one. I don't know if I can even make it. So at ranges like 200 meters you can use these dots to hit the target. I'll do still one first. See when I aim there, it'll hit. And if someone's moving, you want to have them aimed at that 200 meters, and you also want to take into account the fact that they're moving, so aim slightly ahead. And that way when you fire, you'll hit the target. Okay, that's all I have to really say about the different kinds of weapons in this game. And just try and practice controlling the recoil of all the different weapons and getting used to it. And after a while you should be able to master it. And you should be able to control the weapon's recoil no problem, so that you can all hit in the same area and not let the weapon stray off. So with the movement in Apex Legends, there's actually quite a lot of different things you can do. So for this I'll probably make a far more comprehensive movement video of its own, and in that way I can go into more defensive and offensive movements, and also how to move faster around the map and things like that. So I think that deserves a video of its own that I'll probably do at some point. So a couple of final things to note is the select fire on the Havoc that makes it single fire is the only hit scan thing in this game. And what hit scan means is that when you shoot, it hits the thing you're aiming at instantly, rather than it taking time to travel. So this makes it easier to hit shots at range. So you want to try and use that at longer ranges to hit people far easier than you could with a projectile weapon. Apart from that, I think that's about everything I wanted to cover. So if you enjoyed this, please leave a like. If you want to see more, please leave a subscribe. If you want more in the meantime, please check out my last two videos. One's on balloons and the other one's on healing while moving fast, so bunny hopping. And I think my next video will be on movement tips in Apex. So if you'd like to see that, please let me know. If you have any constructive criticism or anything you'd like to say, feel free to leave a comment. So thanks guys, and I'll see you next time.